Yo, what's good everybody? My name is Jay Fatty. Welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about how to mix and master boom bap beats using stock plugins in FL Studio. So let's get right into it. So I got this beat here, it's just drums and chops right now. So if we listen to it, if you like what you heard, all of these sounds, the drum sounds, and then the sample that I chopped is from the Vault Sounds. You can check them out with the link in the description and the first pinned comment. They got some solid packs and they're pretty cheap right now. You can even use the promo code JFATTY, all caps, no spaces, to get 20% off your order. So check it out if you're interested in that. Alright, let's get right back to this. First thing I'll do is consolidate these chops. I'll right click on the track, do consolidate track, from track start, hit start. Alright, so that'll consolidate that to a waveform. I'll get rid of this, ungroup this channel, and we're going to actually extract these stems from this sample as well. So I'll hit extract stems from sample, and we'll just do all of these, hit extract. Alright, now that everything's extracted here, I'm going to delete this tail end, and now we can actually bring everything to the mixer. Let me just rename these. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of this original sample track here, and to move stuff up, so I can left click and drag to highlight them and press Alt and press up on the D-pad and just move them up here to the top. And actually I'm going to move these two down. I like my stuff a certain way. So like this, and then now I can left click and drag to highlight all of the elements like so. Go into the mixer, click on the first empty element, make sure all the other inserts are empty as well, because I'm going to do a shift control L and it'll just route and name all of those elements into the mixer. Let me move this down here. Now I'm going to color code my elements. It just helps me when I'm mixing. So I can do a control, left click and drag to highlight all of the elements that I want to color to a certain, I'll do red for these drums. And then bass, I'll do yellow. And we'll just keep these two. So let's add some effects on these drums. I'm going to do a control, left click and drag and route them to a drum bus. All you got to do to make a bus is go over to an empty insert, rename it as whatever bus you want it, and then do dock to. You can dock it to the left or the right. That's all I did for this drum bus over here. And let's throw on some kind of saturation. We're going to throw on Distructor. Distructor is a very nice plugin to get distortion, filter, chorus, and speaker effects. I really like it for the distortion because it has all of the different saturations and stuff like that kind of bundled together. So even this Harmer Classic default one it pulls up, you can mess with the preamp, the wet, the dry, and the filter. The dry is mixing your dry signal in, the wet will be mixing the wet volume, and then your filter cut will actually cut frequencies out of the distortion effect. Even the whole sample, so you can get some filter sweeps like that. The low pass filter when you're messing with this cut here. And right there sounds really good with just a little bit of distortion. So, and then if we want to add a little reverb to the drums, what I'm going to do is throw on Luxeverb. It's right over here. And I'm going to go over under presets and do drum plate. Now Luxeverb is only included in the all plugins edition, or you could purchase it separately, but it's definitely worth it. You could use Fruity Reverb, but this just blows Fruity Reverb out of the water. So I'm going to go to the presets and make sure I'm on drum plate, and we're going to just mess with the decay, brightness, character, and this wet slider over here. So that sounds pretty good. So now let's route these instruments to a bus as well. I have a synth bus over here. And I'm going to put on Distructor also, but let's mess with some other options here, like the chorus. We'll take the speaker off and the filter off. Let's do one at a time here. So let's start with the distortion. Let's actually put on, we just want to add a little bit of saturation. So let's put on Harmer Soft Sat. And we'll bring these down. We don't want it too much. On the chorus, I just moved it from wide to stereo, and we're just going to mess with these sliders here. So you can mess with the mix on each one of these as well, and then mess with the N. I messed with the N on this chorus, just brought the N volume, or the input volume, you know, as it's going through the chain. It's got volume that comes in and the volume that goes out. So you can mess with those specifically, and when it goes through the chorus, I messed with the in volume rather than the out, and it just gives it a bit more punch without distortion. There are a little bit of undesired frequencies, but that's a nice segue to my next topic, which would be EQing up things. Which you can do the EQing when you're actually leveling stuff. We haven't gotten to that part yet, but I like to EQ here and there as I see fit to really help the beat out. So I'm going to go on the instruments here and throw on a Fruity Parametric EQ2, put on the linear phase, and let's mess with this a little bit. Now I'm going to go over here to the vocals because I'm trying to get them to not be as kind of, they're not clashing, but they sound like they're just, they have some frequencies that are kind of muddled up a little bit. So you hear how I just barely dipped this fourth band down a little bit, you know, only about negative 1.6, 1.7 dB, and it really just helped everything kind of sit together, let the instrument shine a bit more. But see, I could have probably also achieved this, let's see if I can, by panning this instrument or this element. So we can keep these instruments where they are, but maybe these vocals we pan to the right. So I took off that EQ. There's no more manipulation on the frequencies. It's just when I move these vocals to the right, it brings more room in the middle space for the instruments. Because you got to think of it as almost like a 3D box when you're filling up the frequencies, you know? So if you put stuff more to the side, left or right, you can really make room for everything. They're not all kind of huddled together in a few seats, if you will. But we'll keep the panning, and we'll actually put the EQ on as well, because I want both, but I'm going to be manipulating this EQ a bit more since we have this panning now. And I'm just moving on down the line, not EQing every element, just the elements that I see fit, which is just the melodic elements in this case, the instruments, vocals, and this bass. Some of these drums we might have to EQ up a little bit as we progress through the mix. We just have to see and hear and listen, you know. We don't want to just EQ randomly. So I'm just dipping some of this bass frequencies just a little bit. Nothing crazy. We don't really want to EQ our bass too crazy all the time. It's really about level, where it's sitting, you know. We'll get more into that as we're leveling the mix, which I think we're actually there to start doing. Actually, one other thing that I like to do is I'll put this on the master, and you may hear people say nothing other than master effects go on the master, which is, you know, can be a valid point, but you can put it instills the wrong thing in people's minds, like thinking that you can't put any other effects on the master. You can, all right? It just depends on the order of the effects. So say here's my master chain and all of my mastering effects will be down here. I can put effects up here. That's fine, because the sound signal is going to be coming through and then hitting these first effects, then the mastering effects. As long as these random effects, or I wouldn't say random, but let's just call them flare effects, are above the mastering effects, you're fine, you know. Unless your mastering chain is all 10 slots, you know, you're fine. So just keep that in mind. We're going to be putting on a Fruity Love filter right here on slot 1. This is some sauce, because there's some really good presets, especially if you've watched my videos. You know I talk about this all the time. PC low pass plus phaser. And we just add a little bit of it. We can bring this point on this graph up to the top right. That's where I like to have it sit. Bring the cut pretty much all the way up and the resonance down, and it just adds some flavor, in my opinion. Alright, so now we're going to get into actually leveling this beat. We're just going to bring everything down to 0. Now, you can either mix with headphones, that's what I recommend, or you can mix with monitors. Just make sure you check with headphones and then check, or vice versa, check with monitors. Even check on your phone if you can, check in a car, just really as many places you can, just to really hear the mix. But yeah, it's up to you what you want to mix with. Just when the mix is done, make sure you're checking it out on multiple mediums. So I like to bring my headphone volume up a little bit, just so it's, you know, a little bit louder than normal, and I'm going to be mixing low, so it won't actually be super loud, but it'll allow me to hear the mix without bringing it up too loud and not having enough headroom. Okay, so let's start with the drums. Then we bring the bass up, and now we'll go back into these the melodic element. So since over here there's a bit more piercing frequencies, let's actually add a filter on the instruments. And let's go to simple high pass, or sorry, simple low pass. And we'll bring the cut up pretty much. Same thing we did with that other filter pretty much. And let's actually, what we'll actually do is let's bring the cut down a little bit. So the filter does help a little bit. We will actually have to add what some may call a dynamic EQ, but I'm just going to throw it on a regular parametric EQ and automate it. Essentially the same thing, but essentially it's just going to affect these frequencies only at this time. So let's listen to this here. So I can bring the mix knob down, make sure I'm highlighted on the area that I want this automation. Right click, create automation clip, and then we can go in here and just right click points in like so. Do the same thing on the other side. Bring the tension knob up like that. And now we have the EQ set for only right there. We actually also want to automate that filter too. So let's do that. Same way we did the EQ. Actually right here, let's have another effect happen with this love filter we put on the master. We're going to put an empty pattern. We highlighted the area again. Let's put an empty pattern like this, drag it out to the area, and go into that master love filter, and let's right click on the recording button up here and make sure automation and notes is on, then left click to arm it. And when we hit play, I'm going to mess with the graph here and automate that movement, and it's going to be some dope effects here. Let's try it out. Now you can see in that pattern we placed is all of the automation. So, and another thing that I want to do is right here maybe. I just want to hear it because there's this break, then it goes into that second part. Let's go on to the master again under that love filter, throw on that gross beat, go to presets and then momentary and then vinyl off. I just want to hear how this sounds. I'll create an automation clip and then same thing, put some points in, mess with the tension knob. I'll maybe add this again right here. Bring it over. All I did there was, as long as the black bar isn't highlighted up here and everything's all on grid, you can do a control left click to highlight the elements and do a control B, and it'll just bring them over. So right here, when it comes back in, let's add some kind of like effect. So there, we added this little spacey boy effect. So this grimy hat, I'm going to put an EQ on it and just mess with some of these higher frequencies. Alright, so what we got to also do is make a sidechain bus. Same thing that we did with the drum bus. To get it over here, just name it sidechain bus, dock 2, move it to the left or to the right, whichever you prefer. And then I'm going to go to the drum bus, right click on the arrow of the sidechain bus and do sidechain to this track. And then the synth bus, I'm going to right click on the sidechain bus and do route to this track only. And then same thing with this bass here. So my drums are sidechained to the sidechain bus, and then the synth bus is getting routed to the sidechain bus only, and the bass is getting routed to the sidechain bus only. So now on the sidechain bus, I'll throw on a limiter. Right click on the sidechain, do drum bus, and I'll mess with the knee, the ratio, bring them both to the right, and now we'll mess with the threshold and the release. The blue peaks here are your drums, and then the white is waveform is the synth bus and the bass. And you kind of want to have a good middle point between the drums and the waveform, so it sounds like the drums have space for themselves, but they're not too overpowering. So right about here for me sounds good. You can mess with this release over to the left or over to the right. It just depends per the beat, but really listen with your ears and see which you prefer. Now we're mastering our beats to make sure they're the loudest they are when we're presenting them. If you are sending your beats to an artist or they purchase the beat, make sure they get the unmastered beat or at least get the unmastered stems, so then they can still mix the stuff or get an engineer to mix the beat properly. But we're just mastering it because, you know, that way we can display this beat if we put it on YouTube or SoundCloud or whatever. We want it to sound good to get people interested. And then when they are interested and really love the beat, that's when, you know, they're going to need the bones of the beat to really make the song, if that makes sense. So really, it's all up to the mix. As long as the mix is good, everything else will be good. All we really need to do is just bring it all up in volume. So we could use Maximus, but you could use an even simpler route. So first thing is throw on a fruity compressor. Alright, we're going to have lower attack, kind of lower release. We're not going to go too much into compression because that's a whole other video. And we're going to mess with the ratio and the threshold and the gain here. So the simplest way I could put it, if you bring the threshold down, you'll start hearing it manipulating. Find a good spot for it and then increase the gain for how much gain it took. Because all that we're trying to do here is really make sure everything is nice, sitting nice together. And there's not some transients that are like way high up here while others are way down right here. We're kind of bringing those higher transients bloop, down even with those other ones in a sense. And then we're bringing the overall gain up, because when you brought the gain up before with those high transients, that would bring that high transient up to a spot where it was potentially peaking where everything else was fine. So now that we compressed it and kind of smudged everything down, we can bring the volume up without having spots of distortion or stuff that our ears don't like. Now let's add on a soft clipper and a limiter, okay? We got to talk about how the limiter works a bit here. So on the limiter, if you're on the limit tab, you have this ceiling here. Let me play some of this beat. So our ceiling essentially is where we would set our level of loudness for the beat, where we want the top parts of the peaks hitting, these transients hitting that, so it's that loudness. So if I brought it down to like negative 1.6 dB, that'd be a 1.6 dB of headroom to 0. 0 is when things start to clip and could sound bad. So essentially the ceiling, what it does is when those transients meet that ceiling, it's just completely cutting those transients. So if we listen to this, watch these transients and listen. You see the limiter is cutting those transients pretty harshly, which could be good, could be bad, depending on the situation. But I personally just don't like using this ceiling. So I can just throw it all the way up and get rid of it, essentially, disregard it. But what comes into play now is the saturation over here, which acts as a soft clipper, okay? Which all a soft clipper is another form of limiting, but instead of when it's meeting those transients, instead of really harshly cutting the transients out like that, it more so rounds them instead of just like a complete harsh cut. So let's listen to this beat. You see how much more I had to go down there to really get that purple being the deleted part or the removal of what it's taking off those transients. I had to really bring that saturation knob down here quite a bit to really do even half of what that limiter was doing. So it's way more of a soft clip. That's exactly what it's talking about. It's very softly cutting those transients rather than a limiter, which is just a hard cut. Okay, so keep that in mind. You may want the limiter in some situations, whereas other situations, especially for a beat, you may want that soft clipper. So we're going to bring the saturation to, let's do like, we'll do negative 2.5. And now we're going to go up to the soft clipper that we actually put on here. Same concept over here. We're bringing the threshold all the way to the left, and it's really rounding out how it's going to cut the transients. Now we'll bring the post up, so it's going to be going through this limiter as well, and then into this soft clipper. So it's kind of getting soft clipped twice. So when we bring the post up, we're going to be watching these transients, and we want to see them start getting affected by that saturation level we set, and that is going to be the dB that the beat will be sitting at, which is negative 2.5 or around that area. Negative 2.5, that way there's just some headroom before 0 because it's a beat, you know, I don't want it like always crazy loud. So now I'm just going to bring this post up and watch these transients. So I had to go in there and mess with the compressor a little bit also, you know, so don't be afraid to go back to the other steps and get them all right together, because it might not always be right when you're first messing with it. When you add the next thing, you might need to tweak something else on the other. But essentially we got to where we want. We see these transients are lightly hitting that, which is fine, but it was getting pretty loud, and I think it sounded good to my ears. It doesn't always have to visually look right. You know, as long as it sounds good, that's what all that matters. Us producers are visually seeing it, but people that are listening to it, they're just using their ears. They don't care about all this visual aspect. You know, they're just consuming it with their ears. So as long as, that's what we got to remember. have a consumer's ear and make sure it sounds good to that. And it's always a good sign. So, but yeah, that's really it. A nice simple mix and master with stock plugins. We could have used Maximus before, but I've already made a video on Maximus. If you want to check that out, check it out with the top link in the top right now. But yeah, let me know if there's any other mixing and mastering questions you have. You can drop those questions down in the comments, and make sure you check out the Vault Sounds. If you liked what you heard in this beat, you can get these sounds and these samples and use them yourself. Like I said, you can go check out the Vault Sounds with the link in the first pinned comment and the description. Use the promo code JFATTY to get 20% off. And like I said, the packs are already cheap right now, so you're gonna be getting a really good deal on these sounds. If this video brought you value, please leave a like, hit subscribe, and hit the little bell. I appreciate all the support and all the love shown on my videos, y'all. It really means a lot to me. Make sure you stay safe, stay striving, and always be getting it. Much love, y'all. Peace.